Hello, my name is Jackson Falconer Rosenberg, and this is my guest, Kareem Kassim. We're here to talk about the pop culture in the year of 2016. For the segment today, we're going to talk about the records that have come out this year. First, we're going to talk about a record by a great rapper out of Compton named Kendrick Lamar, who's come out with his third studio album on contract called Untitled Unmastered, which is outtakes from his previous studio album, To Pimp a Butterfly, which made record-breaking sales when it came out last year. Now, Kareem, what did you think of Kendrick Lamar's Untitled Unmastered?
Personally, I really thought that calling it outtakes is really disingenuous to the product of it, because it's really high-quality songs. Like, they could have been incorporated into the actual album To Pimp a Butterfly super easily and would have created great tracks on it. So, for example, Untitled Unmastered track number 8, because they're labeled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Only the moment I complete us. Why you hate to work for it? The reason I never went to work for it. See, a 9 to 5 was so job turkey, but when Thanksgiving came, that check didn't hurt me. You think
Track number 8 is one of my personal favorites, and if it was on the actual album, I think that would actually be my favorite song on the album, besides King Kunta, of course.
You know what, you are right, that outtakes was a pretty crude term. And what's also amazing about the record is that it doesn't feel like it was just a bunch of like mumbled together, deleted scenes, as you will. It really feels like its own separate entity. Because it deals a lot with this central theme of, you know, really like romance and sex, which Kendrick only talks about in his previous studio albums only as a metaphor. But here he's really facing it head on. And so that's really interesting in this record.
Yeah, it's also very interesting how similar it is to the actual studio album To Pimp a Butterfly. You can really see where he gets his vibes from, where he gets his beats from, and how similar everything is, and how cohesive it would be if it was actually incorporated into the full album.
Totally, totally. And what would you say your favorite tracks were? 8, but would you have any others?
I also really loved number 2. I thought 2 had a really interesting beat, a novel beat, and
2 tears in a bucket, I cry with you. But I can never lie with you. I can never afford not to afford. I can never put my plans to the side with you.
But we should say that the tracks don't actually have names. They are literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Yes.
But sorry.
It's a unique naming.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's number 2. What about yours?
I really, you know, as you were saying, really loved 7. It's an amazing and really anthemic track that, according to what I've read, was recorded over 2 years, from 2014 to 2016.
Love will get you out there. Judge will get you out there. Fame will get you out there. Chains will get you out there. Juice will get you out there. Levitate, 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 levitate.
Yeah, and it's just a really interesting sort of blend of genres, and they sort of do this weird, almost rock and roll-esque jam out in the end. Really fun stuff. And I also loved track 6, which is sort of a departure for Kendrick Lamar, because it's almost like a Marvin Gaye-esque soul and R&B song, which is a genre that he's sort of like played around with in his previous work, but this time he's just going straight on, making a soul song. It's weird, and it's really, really fun.
Fact about Untitled track number 7 was that one of Kendrick Lamar's friends' child, Young Egypt, who he makes a reference to on the track, actually helped produce one of the beats in the second half of the song. And he calls him out personally. He says Young Egypt as a thank you. So a really interesting incorporation of his hometown roots and how he still talks to people that he used to hang out with.
Yeah, that's a really great point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally love this album. Really grateful to have a rapper as skillful and artistically rich as Kendrick Lamar in the hip-hop genre today. Would you agree, Graham?
I would absolutely agree. And it's really amazing how something that he remarks as one of his outtakes tracks is still one of my favorite pieces of music of the year. And it's still one of the best albums that was produced.
Wonderful. All right, so that's Untitled Unmastered, available now on streaming services and on iTunes. The second album we're going to talk about today is by another interesting rapper who's out of Chicago, and his name's Chance the Rapper. And his third mixtape, called Coloring Book.
I got my city doing front flips. I got my city doing front flips. When everybody made it right, they call.
And so Coloring Book was hotly anticipated among the hip-hop community, and it just came out a couple months ago. Kareem, what did you think of it?
I'm a self-made Chance stan. I love Chance the Rapper, and I love this album, this mixtape actually, so much. I liked it almost as much as I liked Acid Rap, which to me is the best mixtape I've ever heard in my life. And Chance 3, Coloring Book, one of the greatest mixtapes as well. I really loved it. There were a few missteps, but overall, the trending theme of happiness and support and how gospel-y his entire mixtape was. I really loved every part of it. But I know you actually were not a fan, and you were also a previous fan of acid rap.
That's right. So I'd like to talk about that. Acid rap is one of my favorite hip-hop albums ever. Mixtape or album, like he calls them mixtapes because he releases them for free, but they're essentially albums, right? They're full 10 to 12 tracks.
He calls it a mixtape because he doesn't have a studio backing him. He prefers to be free from the studio leashes, as they say. That's
a fantastic point. But yeah, so Acid Rap is just a perfect hip-hop album in my mind. It's one of the albums that I just constantly put on repeat when I'm hanging out at the house. I would recommend it to anyone, regardless if they're into hip-hop or not. I think it's also like it could be a cool introduction to that the genre, or at least where it is today. So I was really, really excited for Coloring Book, but yeah, I wasn't that really interested in what the end product was. It felt, we should say, it's an extremely religious album.
Yeah, like there's an entire song just dedicated to saying God is great.
Yeah, which is cool. I mean, I'm not necessarily a religious person, but to see something, to see someone care so much about religion is an interesting thing. And Chance actually also dealt with this just earlier this year. When he featured on Kendrick Lamar, or sorry, not Kendrick Lamar, but when he featured on Kanye West's new record, The Life of Pablo, on the song Ultralight Beam, which I think is just a beautiful, amazing song. And it deals with religious themes, but it sort of opens it up to this broader philosophical meaning. Coloring Book doesn't do that for me. It's really about blessings from God and how great is God and all that, which is fine and it's fun, but it didn't come up to anything all that interesting for me.
For my real fans, I got caught up with a Lil Xan. Can't stop me, but it's slow me though. Yeah, nigga famous, you don't know me though. But their DJ still play me though. Never don't even need the radio. The new shit sound like a rodeo.
So as a fan, I can completely understand where you're coming from. He does have 2 songs named Blessing, the exact same spelling, which could be confusing, but there's one song called How Great, where he just shoves God down the listener's throat and just keeps shoving it down.
That's correct.
It gets a bit overdone at some points, and I can see how a complaint can come from that and how it could detract from the overall listening experience. So I agree with some parts, but still, the sum of its parts is still so great. The beats are incredible, energetic.
I want to talk about the beats, because the beats are very different to what Chance the Rapper has done in the past. Because it's not, the one thing that was really cool about acid rap in my mind was that it really sounds like there's a band behind Chance playing the whole time. This is very much a synthy, electronic album. Would you agree?
No, I would agree with that. But then there's also parts of the album that are dedicated to synth, and then there's other parts dedicated to Donnie Trumpet, his co-performer, and that he calls out Donnie Trumpet and says he's playing this music, and you can tell that the beats are really handmade and really, really heartfelt. They're energetic and happy, as I was saying before. They're prideful in his work.
Right. They are definitely energetic. Definitely energetic. There were some tracks on this record that I really did like, such as there's one called Same Drugs, which deals with the sort of thing that Chance dealt with in acid rap about, teenagers and drugs, basically. But it's kind of an interesting song about maturing into adulthood. Yeah, so I like that album, but on the whole, the album didn't do much for me. What were your favorite tracks, Grim?
My favorite tracks, personally, I loved Angels. Angels is just a great song. That song is like, when I go listening to music, I don't go there to feel sad and think about what the world has done wrong to me. I go to the music to just get happy and excited and get pumped and just jump around. You like Same Drugs, which is kind of a sad song.
Yeah, it's the only sad song on the album.
So I think that kind of shows the difference in how we enjoy that album
That's
a
lot.
Good point. Where I just like getting happy and Jackson just wants to
I like getting happy. I like getting happy fine. It's just, acid rap is a really happy, fun album, but I don't know, this one to me felt pretty vapid. But
You're vapid.
Obviously we disagree on that front. So now, the third album we'd like to talk about was a huge hit when it came out, basically enraptured pop culture. And it was called Lemonade, and it was the 6th studio album by pop icon Beyonce. And so it was met with huge commercial success and critical acclaim. Kareem, what did you think of Lemonade?
I thought the critical acclaim was a bit overstated, but it was a great album on its own. It's a departure from normal pop music, and it kind of was it was an interesting take on her personal relationships and how she deals with things. And I really like some songs. Some songs are kind of boring to me, but there was a couple songs that would just stand out and exciting, and really had a really emotional attachment to it. And you could feel her just breathing and just speaking to the audience through her music, through a few of those songs. But there were some songs that were kind of
Yeah, I'd agree, but there's definitely what you said at the beginning when you said it doesn't feel like a pop album. It really doesn't. Like, there are some really, really interesting, weird things going on. The majority of the instrumentation is, I wouldn't say slight, but it's sort of subtle. It's very quick staccato notes with Beyonce's voice sort of overbearing over everything. There are some really beautiful songs in there. There's one called Sandcastles, which is just this gorgeous, almost like Adele-like sort of anthem. And she really screams in her voice. It's gorgeous. But yeah, and it's a really cool album. The themes of it are kind of interesting because it deals sort of simultaneously with Black empowerment, with the themes that, you know, countless pop artists deal with, which is extremely interesting and popular in their genre. But it also sort of deals simultaneously with her marriage with Jay-Z. Well, the supposed marriage that is drawn out in the music, which may or may not be autobiographical.
But it is autobiographical.
Yeah. So yeah. So Kareem, what did you think of the themes expressed?
The themes, they were clear. They were. She really pronounced the themes. She wasn't subtle about it very much. But
yeah, we should say it's basically about how this woman's husband is cheating on her, who may or may not be Jay-Z.
This woman, Beyonce, and
Yeah.
husband, Jay-Z.
Yeah. Yes, correct. So, but it's a fun album. The stuff she says about infidelity are kind of interesting and intriguing, I would say.
Just one more thing about how you were saying it doesn't sound like a pop album.
Mm-hmm.
This is her 6th studio release. That's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Thanks.
But what I'm trying to say is that after 5 albums, she's trying to progress who she is and how her music. And this album really shows that she's progressing as an artist and how she develops her music and how she goes through themes. So I think this album really shows her diversity as a artist and how she can create interesting new music, even at this many times. So she's really progressing herself as an individual artist.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's a lot of weird genre popping around. There's one song that features Jack White, the rock and roll icon, in it that sounds like a rock and roll song. It's really quite fascinating. And yeah, and also Kendrick Lamar, who we mentioned earlier, features on this record in a song called Freedom, which is very much about Black empowerment, which is a huge theme that Kendrick Lamar deals with. Yeah, it's all interesting and good stuff. I really enjoyed listening to this album. My favorite tracks would probably be Sandcastles and Freedom. Yeah, what did you think, Kareem?
My favorite track would be Formation. I just like the song. The lyrics are stupid, but like I enjoy the song.
All right, cool. And we're just going to end with some quick personal recommendations. And so these are just albums that we individually really loved that have come out this year. Kareem, what would you like to say?
So an album that I really enjoyed over the past couple of weeks has been YG Still Brazy. I love that album. I think it's just fun. It's a great time. And it's really well produced, and it's his second album, and it really shows how much he's progressed and how good he is, because some of those songs really deliver a really thought out story, beginning, middle, and through thorough themes, great talking, great lyrics, and great beats, and some political points like FDT, F Donald Trump. That song is still on there, slightly censored, but it still shows that he's still trying to say what he wants to say, even though people are trying to stop him. I really love that album a lot.
Nice, very cool. And I'd like to mention Radiohead's A Moon-Shaped Pool. So this is a band that probably one of my favorite bands of all time, if not my all-time favorite band. They're just this fantastic, really interesting, consistent, I guess you'd call them a rock band, but they really go through genres like nothing. This record is a really sort of soft, almost lullaby-esque album. That came out right after Radiohead's frontman Tom York divorced with his wife, and they were married like 26 years. So it's a really kind of beautiful heartbreak album. yeah, just another great record from a band who consistently shows that they're a really fantastic source of not just talent, but artistic integrity. And so yeah, thank you for watching the show. This has been the Pop Culture segment on RPTV with Jackson and Kareem. Thank you.
Bye.